Welcome to Life in the Leadership Lane. I'm your host, Bruce Waller, where I get to talk to leaders that are making a difference in the workplace and in our community. What did they do to get started, and what are they doing to stay there? And today, oh my goodness, I have a special guest. His name is Bob Stoops. Yep, he's a former head football coach at the University of Oklahoma. And he's also the author of the book, No Excuses, The Making of a Head Coach. Bob Stoops and Gene Wojciechowski. And Coach, I am just absolutely honored to have you on the show today.
Bruce, good to be with you. And heck, you're out there talking to the business world. This is how I'm between meetings and I have to do this Zoom in my car. So I got 30 minutes before my next appointment. I thought I retired.
Oh man, there's no retiring for you. Hey, I was just thinking back, I had the great Toby Rowland on the show back in 2020. So now another leader from the Sooner family. So what a great guy. Hey, I actually grew up. I was curious. I grew up about 45 minutes east of Norman down Highway 9 in a little town, great football country of Seminole, Oklahoma. Did you know Mike Snyder, Coach Mike Snyder?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Great little town. And Mike does a great job over there.
Yeah, for sure. We played with a couple of Sooner players on that 85 championship team. And then, my kids went to Lake Dallas High School. So you had a couple of pretty good players from Lake Dallas High School in Dusty Dvorak and Big Darryl.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Darryl's still playing, and Dusty I see around here. Of course, he's in broadcasting, was a great player for me. And Big Darryl Williams is he's still on somebody's roster. I want to say Buffalo, but I'm not sure if that's right.
Yeah, so we definitely follow Big Darryl Williams. Just a great guy. Hey, we're going to talk some leadership lessons from your book, of course, in football. And I would love to start, actually, whenever I do a podcast, I always think back about when I met that person or when that person first came into my path. And for you, Coach, it was in 1998. I had just moved to Dallas, Texas, about 3 years earlier. And I was, our general manager was a big time Florida Gator fan, like big time. And he came up to me, and of course, you know what the years were like in 95 through 98 for Oklahoma. And he said, "Hey, you guys are getting ready to start winning again." I said, "Why is that?" And he said, "You're getting ready to get a coach from Florida. His name's Bob Stoops, and he is going to turn your program around." And I remember saying to him, "Thank goodness." So I was thinking back about that time.
You thank him for me for spreading some good vibes towards me.
I love that. Hey, I want to talk about your book, No Excuses. I want to start really where you started. And you started that first chapter and you started talking about family. And of course, you tell some incredible stories in the book. And for those who are listening, I'm holding up Coach Stoops' book called No Excuses. I'm going to put a link to that in the show notes. But one of the things that caught my attention was you were talking about when you were watching film with your father, Ron Sr. And you were in the kitchen. Of course, it was very funny the way you set all that up. But you said something that really caught my attention. And I thought about how this relates to people in the workplace. And that is this. When people watch a game, you said most people watch the football, and your father taught you to see the game. Can you talk a little bit about that? What you mean by see the game? How do you see the game?
Well, he'd watch the same play over and over 20 times. So he was not only watching, of course, the football, but he was more watching every lineman, offense, defense, their steps, what they're doing. He's, was watching as a linebacker in the right places, or the DBs where they need to be. And when you're watching tape that way, you just run the projector back and forth, and you're paying attention to every little detail, and other than the football. And usually, if you're doing things the right way, the football will get where it's supposed to be. Or if you're running your defense, it won't get to where it needs to be.
Well, I think about that. I think a lot of times, like, you'll have department managers and they're focused only on their department or on their project, when seeing the game might mean, hey, you need to look at all the different departments in the company and see how they all align together.
Well, I don't think there's any question. Certain people in their job, they only need to look at what they're doing, but anybody that's in the leadership or a managing position has got to look at the whole of it all. And how is it all working together? What can we do daily, weekly to improve it? And I think very few things in life stay the same. So also, it may rock along and be good for a year or two, and then some things need to be tweaked or changed. And we never hesitated to do that. I know that in our program, at times I change up the way we practiced. I'd change up from day to day. I went into one game before Tennessee at the beginning of a year and changed up our whole weekly practice routine. And the players thought I was crazy. And we won the game. And afterwards, everybody liked it. They're like, I like this new routine. Our guys were just kind of bored with the old routine. We needed something fresh and new. And we weren't afraid to do it. If you're working hard, you'll make it work one way or another. But I think sometimes you can get stagnant if you don't look to improve.
I love that. I appreciate you sharing that. You went on to play college football at Iowa. And one of the things that really stood out to me, and by the way, I still love that picture of you and Billy Sims and what you shared about what he said. But one of the things that really caught my attention from that was that I think a lot of people feel like quitting at times. And you shared how after that first year, you went back home and you talked to your father. And of course, I'm going to use the word convinced. He sort of convinced you to keep playing. But what was it that just pushed you through to help you like find your lane and like find your role there?
Well, first of all, I was ready. In my mind, I was going to quit and leave Iowa for a lot of reasons. And I went home and talked about it one too many times in front of my father. And I was outside helping him clean up the yard, and he threw his broom down, had some serious choice words for me. And I thought, that isn't how I thought it was going to go. And lo and behold, I was going back to Iowa. And I went back and earned a starting job for the next 4 years. I started at safety, and, had I left, who knows what would have happened throughout my life. But so his tough love pushed me back, and I made me go fight for it some more, and I earned it, so I think the message, I think sometimes people give up too early. Anything worth having in life doesn't come easy. And as a parent, don't be afraid to give a little bit of tough love once in a while. Everybody needs it, now and then. And it sure made a difference, of course, in my life. And, and again, the experience I had playing at Iowa led to this entire career. So, who knows, again, what would have happened had I left.
I love that. Such great advice. I'm curious. I always like to ask leader, it seems like there's a common thread for leaders in the workplace, and that is they all have people that help them get through a lot of different stages in their career. I call them mentors. And you share like a ton of people in your book that helped you. I was just curious if you could just share maybe a mentor or someone that helped you through, and what was it that made them such a good mentor for you?
Well, I think first it starts with my parents and my father for sure. Just trying to model after him. And I was in a high school that had some great coaches throughout the program that were really strong men, that were great leaders, that they rub off on you. And then, of course, traveling to, Iowa, I was around the most amazing coaches: Hayden Fry, Hall of Fame coach; Bill Snyder, Hall of Fame coach; Barry Alvarez, Hall of Fame coach. And it goes on and on. Kirk Ferentz, Dan McCarney, head coaches, so all these people, I was just really fortunate to have been influenced and around the right people that were great leaders, strong leaders, and really quality, smart people. So, those are the ones. And then it polished it all off, especially for me, was working with Steve Spurrier, the ultimate leader, the ultimate competitor. And, he really, I emulated about everything I could in this program after what we were doing at Florida. And it was easy to do too. I really, Coach Spurrier and I not only are just such close friends, we're very similar people. We're very much alike in our family values and spiritually and everything else. So it was easy to emulate, and to follow Coach Spurrier. And he remains a very, very, he and his wife, Jerry, incredibly close to our family and to me to this day. So anyway, and I just saw him a week ago and had a golf match with him and hung out with him at the pool out there in Florida for a little bit. So, you find the right people in life that are really doing things in a special way. Do your best to listen to them, watch them, learn from them, and don't be afraid to ask.
Oh, that's so good. That is so good. I love that. I appreciate that. Hey, I was reading in your book, the chapter called Identity, and it kind of reminded me of a time that I heard Lou Holtz talk about the thing he feared most was the perils of being number one. And you had talked a little bit about how you had that early success. I remember that national championship year, and incredible year. But you had talked about, how much you enjoyed that chase. And I was just curious, there's a lot of people like that experience that success. How'd you keep it going?
Yeah, I always compartmentalized everything. To me, enjoy that year as it happened. Love the chase of it all, the fight of it all, the struggle. Once it's gone, it's gone. And that was our mantra around our building and in our office. Even in recruiting, I get guys and they'd come. I said, just because we've won all these years doesn't mean you're going to. Everybody has to earn their stripes. We earn what we do every day, every month, every year, and every year is a new one. So, we're going to work for it, fight for it, just like we always do. We'll try and structure some things if we feel we can make it better, in our methods and how to reach those goals. Never afraid to tweak those if we need to. But the nut and bolts of it's going to be hard work, toughness, and earn it. So as much as you can tweak and change things, it ain't going to make it easier. Winning at the level we have is not easy. And anybody's winning that. It's a lot of work. And I always made sure my players and coaching staff understood that we got to go earn it again every time we go out there, and always too, we're going to get everybody's best shot. So once we had won like we did and won the national championship, you better even be more ready the next day.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I love that. Every year is different. You have different players. Just a lot of things are different. Hey, you mentioned about recruiting. I do want to touch on that because in chapter 13, you have a chapter titled Subjectivity. And you said, recognizing talent is an art. It's an inexact science, and how sometimes you take a leap of faith and sometimes you get big and other times you splat. You talked a little bit about some of the players that you saw, not necessarily on the football field, but on the basketball court. I thought that was just fantastic. I would love for you to talk about what you typically would look at when you were looking at recruiting, but also not just players. Like, how do you know, like, they're going to be a good coach? Because you recruited some pretty good coaches too.
Well, I think first of all, it's character. The individual person and character. I don't want to be around anyone that I'm not around bad people at any time, anywhere. I want quality, good people as assistants and even as a player. I don't care how good he is. If he's not about the right things, he's not going to be with me. And then everybody has a history and a track record, and it says something about what you've done and who you are and what success you've had. And, so with assistant coaches, I'd always look at what's their history. And, what kind of quality has it really been? What kind of success have they had? And same with players, and players to me, I saw talent in a lot of ways, not just on the football field. The basketball court's one of the easiest ways to spot it. If you can run around and play basketball in a really good way, you got a good football player. And that always held true for me. And you'd actually laugh at, be surprised that if you saw a group, my team play basketball. We had a little tournament one time in the winter to break it up again, changing things up and changing up the monotony of all the lifting and running. Said, we're going to take this week and we're going to, everybody, we had our leaders pick teams and we're going to have a basketball tournament every day. And man, you'd see our guys get out on that basketball court. Your jaw drops. You're like, are you kidding me? You'll see a 300-pound guy going up, dunking. You'll see a 300-pound offensive lineman, top of the key, shooting threes and making them. I mean, you see little guys that can jump out of the roof that'll go down the lane and dunk. That's how I recruited our first team All-American, Derek Strait. In our first recruiting class, he wasn't being highly recruited. Derek ends up the Nagurski Award winner for the best defensive player in America and the Thorpe Award winner for the best defensive back in America. Well, I'm watching him play basketball. This is, while I was recruiting him. I didn't watch 5 minutes of him practice. I looked at the guy recruiting him. I go, heck yeah, we're going to offer him. He was quick as all get out. He could go down the lane, dunk the ball, and he wasn't but 5'10", 5'11", shooting the ball from everywhere. I said, this guy's an athlete. And anyway, that's just an example. It didn't take me probably less than 5 minutes to shake my head at my assistant coach. And then this is the first time I had seen Derek in person. I said, absolutely, we're going to offer him.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Yeah, you talked about Bradford, you talked about Murray. I mean, I just love the stories.
Let me tell that one. DeMarco Murray, I'm recruiting another guy at his school that's already going to come to us. So I go through his school. DeMarco's finishing basketball practice. I hadn't seen him yet or offered him. And the head coach convinces him to show me a dunk. Well, he throws the ball off the back of the cement wall. The ball lands in the lane. He comes running from the top of the key. The ball's up in the air, grabs the ball and rams it through. The backboard shaking. And again, DeMarco's only 6 foot, 6'1". And I'm like, are you kidding me? And I said, if this guy can do that, I said to the coach, I said, now you tell DeMarco, because I'm not allowed to talk to him. He was a junior. Okay. I said, you tell DeMarco that he's got a scholarship at Oklahoma and he can play any position he wants. And I meant it. So I offered him on the spot.
He found a pretty good position.
Oh yeah. And you talked about Bradford was good at everything. I mean, hockey, basketball, anything he picked up. He's a scratch golfer. He'd do anything. And, the most accurate passer I've ever had.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah. Oh, those are great stories. I love that. And that's one thing I love about the book. You can just see some of those insights. And what I wanted people to hear, that people that are listening, is that, it's not just about the resume, it's sizing people up. I love how you talked about when you recruited coaches, how important that was in character. And so it's so much more than what you've done, but who you are.
Well, sure. And let's face it, if you're in a big business or you're leading people, character is going to show up one way or another. You're going to have tough times or whatever it is, making decisions, and you want people that are going to make the right ones or ones that reflect who you are.
Hey, I got a couple more chapters I want to talk about real quick. And one of those chapters is towards the end of the book, and it's called Why. And, of course, you're talking about, you left after an incredible career at the University of Oklahoma. But, I was just thinking about, you thought about, leaving at Iowa, and you decided to stay. And then you tell a story about Jason White where he wasn't named the starter, and all of a sudden he's disappointed and thinking about, leaving. And then, now here you are after an incredible career, and then you make that decision. A lot of people, like, they wonder, should they, is it burnout? Is it fatigue? Is it time to leave? How did you know it was time for you to actually leave? Because a lot of times, or let me ask a different way. How do people know when they need to press down and accelerate and work harder, and when they, it is time to leave? Any thoughts around that?
Well, mine was never burnout. And of course, we had just finished number 4 or 5 in the country and won the Sugar Bowl. So nobody was displeased with what I was doing. So I didn't feel any need to work harder. I just felt for myself in my life, it was the right time. I tell the story. And I'm a spiritual guy. So there's a story, and I won't say it correctly, but just because I'm not a minister or a priest or something that tells good stories about, but there's a parable about a guy that was drowning in a house that kept filling with water. And the first pass by, there's a boat or something comes by, and he rejects it, said he's praying to the Lord, surely he won't let me perish. I've been so faithful and whatnot. And then, I don't know, 2 hours later, something else comes by that could save him, maybe a helicopter, and he waves it on. Third, something comes by to rescue him, and he's still praying, got his eyes closed, and he doesn't even see the third vehicle that could have saved him. So in the end, he dies, drowns, and goes to heaven, and he's having an argument with God when he gets up there on how could you let me pass away, drown this way when I've been so faithful and good to you, and on and on. And he says, well, if you were paying attention and opened your eyes, you would have seen I gave you 3 opportunities not to perish. So not that I was perishing, but I just felt I had gotten some signals in my world and in my eyes that were, why would I even think about this? It had popped up. For instance, I was driving to a game my last year, late in the season in the fall, and I saw a group of golfers. I go by the university course on the way to the stadium. And every year for 18 years, I'd think, look at these schmucks out there. They don't get to go play. That they got a boring life out there golfing. I get to go and have a game and be on the field and da 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 da. And this last year I drove by and I thought, wow, those guys look like they're having a good time. And I was like, why? That never entered my mind ever before. So little by little, you start to get some in my mind that maybe God's telling me something, and it's like, hey, and I'm not afraid. I wasn't afraid of it. I just thought, it's been 18 great years, and you never know in life what else is going to come to you until you open yourself up to it. So I was like, hey, I told my wife, before the last game at home, I didn't want her, if I did act on it, because I didn't have my mind made up, but I didn't want her to be cheated out of the last game at home, that this is what I was thinking, that it might be a possibility. So I said, and fortunately we beat Oklahoma State for the Big 12 championship. And I brought my family out to take a picture under the scoreboard with no one knowing whether I was going to do it or not.
I love that. I was actually at that game with my wife, Dana, and my brother and my sister and her husband, my mom and dad. We were all there. It was raining that day. I remember that. And there was no Big 12 championship game. Hey, I know we only have about 4 more minutes here, so I'm going to kind of wrap up here, but there's something important that another one I want to talk about. And you have a chapter titled Empathy. And empathy is a big word in the workplace, especially with, the coronavirus and how people are working now and remote work and all of that. But you share, of course, the story of your daughter, Mackenzie, and it's a really inspiring story. But you also talk about the importance of volunteering and the empathy in regard to I think it was the OU Children's Hospital. You spent a lot of time there, and you shared a lot of stories. How important is that for you and leadership to just be involved?
Well, I think anytime you're in a leadership position, if you can spread the love, spread the confidence, spread some encouragement, you're to do so, in my mind. Otherwise you're wasting the talent that you have. You need to give back to others. I found my work was founded early in my career was the love of going up to the OU Children's Hospital. Being around in most part, it was mostly through the cancer ward, and met hundreds of kids and families and parents up there through the years. Many I still keep in touch with. I had a neat, neat girl that I met 18 years ago, who's now married and just had twins. And I see her, usually once a year for lunch, but she had sent me a text that she had just had twins, and so there's just great stories like that. And again, many of them I still, run into or keep up with, or they'll call me now that are healed. And then of course, then there's the really difficult stories. You may run into a parent who, their child didn't make it. And it's just, it's always hard, but that never kept me from going back. I always felt, no matter what, you got to keep going back and takes their mind off of maybe the pain and the treatment. If you sit there and spend an hour with them and play a game with them, whatever it is, it gives them, and it more than anything, I felt it makes them know they're important and that they matter, more than anything. That was my big purpose.
I love that. I love that purpose. That's so important. I love how you shared all of that, the stories, and I'm going to, I'll link that in the show notes too. If somebody wants to get, as a matter of fact, I think I saw something where you shared on social media about, hey, we're raising some money for the Children's Hospital. So you continue to stay involved in that. So I'll put a link to that as well.
Yeah, I do cameos that all the proceeds go to children's organizations from Norman, Oklahoma City. So that's part of our foundation. You'll love it. We have the head ball coaches. I stole it from Coach Spurrier, HBC Champions Foundation. And on my foundation, it's with Lincoln Riley and Barry Switzer. And all our proceeds from the foundation events that we do, again, go to children's organizations here locally.
Well, I will definitely put that information in the show notes as well. If somebody wants to learn more about that and wants to get involved in somehow, that way they'll have that information. I'm going to wrap it up. The last question. The football season, this is actually going to be played the opening day of OU season, September the 4th. But you're going to be in a new role. What are you most energized about that?
Yeah, I'm with the great team with Fox Sports, and I'm with Big Noon Kickoff. I'm going to be on the pregame show from 10 Eastern to noon Eastern. And it's with, Rob Stone. It's with Reggie Bush, Matt Leinart, and Brady Quinn. I replaced, people may be familiar with, Urban Meyer was on it the last couple of years. And so now I replaced Urban on the show. So I'm really looking forward to it. A great group of people to work with, a lot of fun. And I think it's going to be exciting to be just to be out there in a different way.
Coach Stoops, it's been an absolute honor just having you on the show and just sharing your wisdom and perspective. I'm confident this is going to help someone out there that's listening right now. And I just wanted to say thank you for doing that.
Oh, thank you for having me on, and all the best to you and everybody listening out there.
Hey, Boomer Sooner, can't wait for the football season to begin, and I'm rooting for you, wishing you the best and continued success.
All right. Thank you. Boomer Sooner to everybody.
Thanks, Coach.